Okay, so I'm actually going to allow people to join in, and if you guys want to get to get to the stage, Dynamis, you can just raise your hand and I'll add you to the stage. And then we can just wait for more people to join. But I was just saying, like, if anyone wants to get into the stage, feel free to do so. Just raise your hand, and I'm going to add you to the stage so you can basically have a conversation and go over these and what we are basically working on and building. It feels kind of lonely here on the stage alone, like without any feedback or people to speak to. Okay, just see a couple of people joining in. Can you guys hear me? Just a quick check. If you guys can hear me, just like request to speak real quick so I can see. Awesome. So in that case, then I think it's on Dairavi's end, and maybe need to check like his output. Okay, so the reason I wanted basically to get like these AMA going is basically to give you guys a little bit more of an update on the state of Rune Realms, what we are basically been doing for the past week since we published the video for the behind the scenes, and also like what is that we aim to do starting next week, and also the updates that you can expect from the project moving forward. That should be like a very, very fast, super fast update. But then more than that, I actually want to get like some brave souls here in the stage and ask you guys a couple of questions to see and get your opinion, also see like in what direction you guys want to see the project moving forward. A little bit of questions about like our Discord in general, and just basically get more feedback on your end as well. I feel that like right now the conversation has been very like one-sided from our end of the studio to people here on Discord. But our idea is to have like a more of a co-creation feel, and I want to start getting your guys' opinion as well while we keep on building what you're building. So for Rune Realms, we basically are pretty much just focusing on marketing now. We are reaching out to a couple of communities, some majority of communities like in the Ethereum space, and also a couple of communities like in the gaming community. We started with a couple of people from Brazil, and now we are moving more into the United States and just basically getting the word out there. The problem is that these things take time in terms of just basically scheduling AMAs for their communities, and also scheduling like whitelist promotions and whitelist giveaways and so on. So because those things take more time, we are planning now in starting to release a couple of new things related to the game world in general. Starting with just like the original soundtrack for the game, and also starting production of a comic book series that will basically cover the lore of the game and just release that moving forward. We're also working in behind the scenes on how we built the game. But more than that, I think that the more important thing that we are working on is to start to reveal a little bit more about what we are building in general. There are a couple of things that we are still working on the details. For example, our tokenomics and also the token emission is something that we are still working on the details with the guys at Notify, with Dex. And the reason for that is because we want to basically build a model that makes sense for everyone involved in this. Up to this point, play to earn games have been basically very one-sided in the sense of either people that join early, they make the most money, and then everyone else basically just are used as a exit liquidity, or it's basically just a one-sided where the studio makes all the money, they sell in all of the tokens, and that's how the studio makes money. For us, we want to basically to work in a way that we can make, even for the first year, that our goal is basically to have like the emission of the token just for a year, and then close our emission of tokens and focus more in revenue share for people that invested in the initial mini game for Rune Realms. But we still want to make sure that we have a tokenomic system that makes sense for people investing. A way that we can actually either take your initial money back or making it in a way that is not so Ponzi-nomics like the majority of games are. It is very, very hard for you to balance that. And that's basically why we haven't announced like a set tokenomics yet, or a set way of how we're going to utilize the tokens. And that is also the reason why we are not doing an ICO. Instead, we're just basically having the NFT sales. That said, this is one of the parts that we are basically working on. And funny enough, the tokenomics actually is one of the parts that it influences a couple of aspects of the game. Because the mini game, it's more of a farming game. So whenever we change the tokenomics, it also changed the way or the dynamic on how the golems, for example, interact with the shrines in terms of the emissions of the token overall. So we started to add a couple of things that are more fun into the game in terms of how you can actually build your farming, which will at the end influence on how much like of a share in the company you actually own. So for example, initially, and I wish I could screen share in here, which I can't. Initially, we had set the golems, and I can share the. Just 1 second. I'm going just to go ahead and grab like an image here, so it gets us an illustration. But initially, we have set the golems in a way that each golem that we have right now, they will basically represent a rarity in the game. However, what we basically end up doing is that each golem moving forward will be able to have the different varieties. So it's not just based on the golem image. Just 2 minutes. I'm going to grab these for you guys, and I'm going to share that in the general chat. But basically, like regardless of what golem is or what you have, like either be like a ice golem, a fire golem, or just a normal golem, they all can basically have a different set of varieties. And what that allow us to do in that case is basically build a system where you can build your farm. Okay, just 1 second. You can build your farm in a way that, let me just go into general and paste the image. It will make more sense when I paste that image in. Okay, so if you guys take a look at the general chat real quick, before, the varieties that you see there were basically set varieties, where you have like the golem, then the ice golem, then the fire golem, ice golem, then the earth golem, and our magic golem. Each one of them, they will basically be like a different variety, where you have like your normal and your common and common, rare, epic, and legendary. However, moving forward, what we changed is that if the golem that, for example, is in the common golem, it will also have the ability to switch and become, for example, a legendary golem. What that allows you to do is it allows you to have like a different interaction in terms of how you build your farm overall. And it will allow also to create a dynamic where in the marketplace, for example, because of this new dynamic that we are adding in the marketplace, it will allow to people that, for example, that have a fire golem, sell that fire golem to someone else that actually needs that fire golem. The way that will work is if you have, for example, 2 fire golems, you'll have a multiplier on how many tokens you can actually farm. So what this allows us to do is when you open the box, because it's random, if you have, for example, a fire golem, but let's say that your farm, for example, it's full of ice golems, for example, it doesn't really matter in the rarity of that golem. What you're allowed to do is you can sell that fire golem in the marketplace, and then, or you can exchange with someone that actually needs it, and you get, for example, a ice golem for you to basically keep on building your multiplier for the farm. So the way that you can think about that, I know that a couple of guys here are in Notify, is like as you like compounding like the Notify nodes, quote unquote, you can basically compound the golems in a way based on their variety. So a couple of these changes are the things that we've basically been working in the background, because what this will allow us to do is that moving forward, that multiplier will also apply to the number of shares that you basically own moving forward in the company, right, in the revenue share. One of the reasons that we had that decision is because we understand that, for example, in majority of play-to-earn games, the point of entry for the game is super high. We want to make sure that we can give everyone the opportunity basically to join and to help us build the game, because that is basically what people will be doing, is by investing there, basically helping us build the game and the company. But at the same time, we want to make sure that if someone, for example, which is like the lowest entry point will be $40, but anyone can basically join. And if you can join and you can trade with other people, what that means is that you can basically use that multiplier to basically to build a position without necessarily having to spend a crazy amount of money. Now, that said, it is an interesting dynamic, and like these are things that unfortunately, like behind the scenes, we are changing them and moving things around, that we cannot basically simply add that to the white paper and then change it later, because it will be weird. So that's why we haven't updated our white paper yet in terms of how the things on how like these little mechanics will actually work, because we need to make sure that mechanics actually match in a way that it makes sense. What I can tell you, however, is in the whole system that we are building. The whole system that we are building was mostly based on who basically has the most money, right? So if you have like a lot of money, you can go in and you would be able to, and again, let me just like copy and paste an image here as a illustration. I wish like they allowed you screen sharing here. So what you're doing was a model where we would have a set emission of tokens per day. And then from that set emission of tokens per day, people that have basically the highest mining power would be the people that will basically mine the most tokens during that day. Now, internally, we don't think that that is particularly fair. That's why we basically ended up changing it in a system that can accommodate more people. And it's a more fair system as well for people joining in. So if I go ahead and I go to just 1 second. Okay, so just go ahead and basically print this. And actually, let me just do a ridiculous number here for you to illustrate this further. Yes, add here 2, 3, and you guys will see basically what I mean by this. It should be. I'm going to copy and paste like an image in the chat again. And you guys basically like at least you're taking like a behind the scenes kind of how we basically were building the initial tokenomics of the game, and also understand on why we are changing it as well, and why like that's the reason that we haven't updated the tokenomics. So if I'm grabbing a print here, you can see that we were, and let me just go, oops, sorry. Okay, so from here to here. Yeah. So you can see that before we had like a total distribution of tokens that we will basically distribute it per day. In that total distribution, you would have like the mining power from each golem, and that mining power basically would represent how many tokens you can farm per day. And now that creates a very unhealthy balance in terms of the economy of the game, because it was basically doing everything that we as a team believe it's wrong, play to earn. That is, one, just adds like someone could just go in and pretty much like farm the entire liquidity pool if they had the money to do it, right? And at the same time, you would have to spend a significant amount of money to do that, but it will be possible for someone basically to kind of take the entire distribution out of the pool. And more than that, it wasn't like a very balanced distribution either. Initially, when we built this, our idea was to have the competition of the farming being between players, where the person with the best strategy would win in terms of like the tokens. However, like we basically realized that that wouldn't be a model that we'd like that model in general. So it's not a fair model. So the work that we've been doing basically behind the scenes is making sure that we create a fair model for people joining in, and also in a way that we can try the max as possible to protect people investing in a project. Now, a couple, like we have advisors for the project. Most of them say like, it's not your job to protect the investors, but it is our job to protect the investors, because at the end of the day, we are building this together. So it is our job to protect the investors, to make sure that what we are building makes sense for everyone, not just for us as a studio. Yes, we still need to take profit, and we still need to make money to basically to keep building what we're building. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we take care of people that are basically believing in us and believing in what we are doing. So Monday, we should have a more definitive model for the tokenomics moving forward, and also have more updates regarding just the game in general. So we are basically going to try to have at least like a bi-weekly, or at least like 3 times a week, more announcements about the game and what we are doing moving forward, while we basically wait for the other communities basically to post about us and to do other AMAs and stuff like that. Yeah, that's basically pretty much like the update that I had for today. In terms of like the marketing side, we are working in a couple of exciting things, like our comics for the lore. We are bringing in more like audio stuff like related to the game, so you guys will basically be able to hear like the OST for the game. And we are building just like a couple of cool things, and of course like we are also going to do like your normal Discord giveaways, like share these and invite friends and get like get a chance of winning like $1,000 and stuff like that. So that's basically what we're organizing in the backend in terms of the marketing of the project. But as we build this, we realize that we want to build things that are more long term and that will have an impact in the game in long term, and not just something that can catch like the attention of someone quickly, and then it's just like everything is super boring. That's why we are basically working on creating like the comics and creating the animations and that we are building, and also the behind the scenes and so on. Yep, that's pretty much like the quick update that we had for the game. If anyone wants to get in the stage, just raise your hands and we can have a conversation. Or if you want to ask questions as well, just feel free to ask in the general chat. I should probably open a different chat for this, but let me actually see here. Just 1 second. And okay, we can just like use the general chat if you guys have any questions for now. And then we need to properly sort out an AMA question channel. I can just duplicate these real quick and move these here. Okay, just added like an AMA question channel. I'm just going to ping that. Well, I should be able to see it below general chat, but hey, hello. Oh, and we're also working in basically getting like the details for the art contest. I think that moving forward, that's something that we want to do in terms of just bringing in community-generated content into the project as well. And it will be fun to have like if someone designs a character, we add that character to the game. We're going to get that sorted out, like because you're part of the Obsidian Council. You're good. Don't worry about it. I was actually talking with Stephanie about this a while ago. So we're just waiting on like at the end of the month. Because we're going to do like an AMA in the Obsidian Council. So and then announce like the partnership as well. But actually let me go ahead and change that because we already actually set like the number of whitelists for the Obsidian Council as well. You're talking about like the mini game or for the core game? Shadow. Yeah, so the mini game is actually done. Like it's the only thing that we like when we're talking about, for example, the tokenomics of the game, that is literally like changing a couple of numbers in the game itself. It doesn't take like a lot of time to basically to change that inside of the game because it basically everything happens on the smart contract. So once you have like the economics done, then we can say like that 100% like the game is the part that takes time, that takes like a lot of time, where it's like building the game assets, like developing the game and so on. That is like 100% done. So as soon as we have like the tokenomics, then we can consider like the mini game like pretty much like 100% done. For the core game, it will take us around like a year to get that going. And even for that, it won't be the full release of the game. It will be the release where you can get like your HQ up to level 5. But even that, like for a normal player playing the game, it is around like 1 to 2 years of content in the game. So it should be fine because then it gives our more time basically to keep on building and iterating on top of that game. So like the part of the game itself for the mini game, the visual part of it's done, and then you just basically smart contracts that need to get done now. It will be open a week before. Yeah, by notifying. It will be open a week before, and then we will release a week and a half after the NFT pre-sale. The reason for that is because it will also basically allow us to have a time for people to, like for third-party companies to review the code and also to take a look at the smart contracts as well. Like those audits can be like super expensive. I think that like one of the cool things about, I'm not sure if you guys watch, like I know that the video is in Portuguese, but if you guys go like in the announcement that I had yesterday, the YouTuber that created the video, we actually gave him access to the developer build for the game, and it was like he was actually testing it, like the farming game that is the mini game. And he was testing it, but like the numbers are there, like they're not the actual numbers because that will be basically parsed by the smart contracts and not in game. Yes, so we can actually publish right now. I can actually send anyone like the access to the developer build. But basically what is there is that like you can just like add the farming into the game. That's it, because everything else will happen with the smart contracts. And we are only going to release like the dungeon crawler version of that game like 6 months from now, around that time frame, like 6 to 7 months from now. So if you guys want to open and test out like the farming game and how it works, we can do that, and we can send it to you guys to test it out as well. But it's like it's a very like passive game because you can just basically build. It has preset shrines and preset golems in it. So you can just basically interact with the game, listen to the music, and get the feel of the game. Awesome. Yeah, we can. I can do that. I can do that for the OGs. I'm actually going to ask them to create like a new build with a couple of updates that we introduce into the game, and also add the notified golem. So the OGs will be able. You guys can actually interact with the game and test it out and look at it and listen to the music and so on. And then yeah, it's a super passive game, right? There is like not much happening to it. I think that the fun part of the game will be once someone like unlocks their own NFTs and how you can actually build and optimize your farm. I think that will be the initial part that will be fun in terms of the strategy, because you need to look into how you can optimize like the shrines and how you can optimize also your golems and how you build that out. I think that will be the fun part. But other than that, like the game is very, very passive. And then once we release like the dungeon crawler, then it will be like hardcore trying to basically to beat a dungeon. And what we have set right now in our GDD, it will be extremely hard for like a normal player to actually to beat the dungeon. So we're actually looking into how we can rebalance like the items drops and stuff like that. And that is another thing, right? Whenever we add like a new item in the game, it will influence the economy of the game. So that's why one of the reasons we are releasing the mini game now is so people can basically start testing it out. We have like the initial use of the game, and then once you release the other part of the game, we as a team also have a better understanding on how the economy of the game is behaving overall, and we can iterate it further when we introduce the other gameplays for the game. But yeah, I'm going to have you guys and give you guys a build where you can actually test out the mini game and the farming of the mini game, and you can see that the game is actually real. It's not just like a video that you play in the background, because that actually happens as well. It's funny because you can build the perception of a product by just creating like a CGI video and publishing it. Hey boss. But anyways, if you guys don't know, the boss that joined the call is like a master tokenomics and an amazing advisor for the game as well. He's like a very, very valuable member of our advising team. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually request Vale to put together right now the build for the game, and then for sure, like by the end of the day for me, which is like 3 p.m. here, but by the end of the day for me, I'm going to ping the OGs and allow you guys to download it like in a separate like area of Discord that is just like for the OGs. I see that will be fun, and then I can get your guys' feedback as well. Okay, we are trying to right now. We are working on. It is a very, very interesting process because we are working on building a further lore and story for the game, like in a deeper level as well. So we are working like with these comic book company to start producing like comics for the game. I think that will be a very interesting way to interact with the game and with the lore of the game as well. But it is like building a game, it's a lot of work. It's funny because I was building the behind the scenes, and the next behind the scenes video that I'm publishing, it's about like the game art and style. And I realized in the video I make it look like super easy, but it took us like around like 3 to 4 months to land in the art style that we have right now. So small things, it can take like a very long time when you're building a game. And then we'll see like if we can get like our Discord by 1,500 people by next week. That's the goal. So that's actually something that I want to ask you guys. What is it you want to see more on happening like on Discord? How can we make this more engaging for you as well? That is the question. Awesome. But we can definitely do that. We are going to try to bring like more sneak peeks like weekly. The thing is that a lot of things that we are doing, they are kind of boring because they're like just code based or just a lot of math behind it. But I'm going to have like Rodrigo start the production of a couple of more things to display here. I'm trying to get like my other co-founders to jump in for an interview at an AMA. The thing is that we have like an overlap between not only time zones, but also an overlap between like the hours that we are like doing are like 9 to 5. So it's really hard like to try to get them like on a schedule that makes sense for everyone. But definitely something I want to do. Like one thing that I want to do, I want to talk with Rodrigo as well. I want to create a live stream where I can bring Rodrigo and just basically paint live. The only thing about like Rodrigo is that he doesn't speak English, so I'll have to be there like mediating and and translating. But then I also want to bring Valnei in and talk about like his experience in game design in general. I said that will be a cool, interesting perspective, especially because like this is the first game that he actually built that is like built for web. So I see that will be an interesting perspective for you guys to get an idea of the challenges between building for Web 2 and Web 3, because it is completely different. You're building a game still, but it is completely different building for the two different platforms.
Yeah.
Like I think that like when you build for Web 3, you need to take in consideration like so many things that when you're building for Web 2, that just doesn't happen. And yeah, it is an interesting space to build. We really like it, but then there are small things that like in a normal game it wouldn't affect anything, right? For example, the example I was giving earlier of the golems, if we launched it like in Web 2, that like the way that we had like originally the idea, we could just change that mid game and most likely people didn't really care about it if the game was fun. But then if you do that in Web3, you can break a whole economy. So you need like to take into consideration a lot of things that usually game studios don't need to worry about. We have like a couple of, I'm trying to produce like a sneak peek. I'm just not sure if we can share that yet. That will be very interesting to see. Let's hear you guys' opinion on it. Just in general about like the system of how the loot box system will work. And that's another thing that if you need to create true randomness, for example, it's super hard to do it in Web3. So once you publish like the loot box system and how it works, I think that will be interesting to get your guys' opinion as well. And if there is anything that you guys would like us to do or change. And that is one of the things that we want to do like moving forward as well, is to get like your feedback, because that is super important for us, and we definitely want to add your ideas into the game as well and build this with you, not just like build the game, but build this with you and with the economy, with the community in general. So no worries, man. Thank you so much for joining. Yep, it's been recorded. I'm going to post it like as soon as we're done. Thanks, man. Looking forward like for our next AMAs and get more people here as well. And thanks so much for showing up. That means a lot. If you guys have like more questions, you can just ask in the AMA question, and we can. Or if you want to join the stage, you can also join the stage as well. No worries, man. We have it recorded, so I'm going to add it here as soon as it's done. Thanks, man. That means a lot. Yeah, I think that like VPN records and Discord in that part of the world, it's been a problem for a lot of people. They had like a call with another friend of mine that is also there, and he also had like problems in joining in Discord. Just like it's interesting things that we don't have to deal in the day to day when you're in Europe. But like yeah, it is like, and it's funny because I use a VPN now on my phone as well, and it's always connected to United States, just because of work. Because there are things that we try to do in general that even if being like in Europe, they don't work, they don't open. So I just resort to using like a VPN on my phone, but then on my PC I'm always connected to Portugal. All right, I think that we can start to wrap this up. I'm going to make sure to post the AMA recording and also keep you guys updated. And for the OGs, you can expect to have like a build for the game for you guys to open in, listen to the music today, and then just chill in the game. Well, you are OG. Well, how are you not an OG? Like you should be OG. You're like one of the first people here. All right, it's done. I just realized that none of our like none of the people that are like in the rugby cars. Yeah, no. I just realized that none of the advices that we have here on Discord, they actually have a Viking role, so we should fix that. It's funny. Like working on, and I think that like the boss knows, like we've been working on Rurals for such a long time by now, that it's been a very, very interesting process. But again, the main point is that it's really trying to balance like tokenomics in a way that it makes sense. and yeah, like it's been a process, but then like the game itself is designed. We just need to connect like the smart contracts to it, and we are ready to go. All right, so I'm going to start to wrap these up. If you guys have more questions, you just let me know. If not, you can expect the recording in the AMA and also the next updates, and then starting next week we want to basically to ping you guys a lot, so get ready for just getting pinged with a lot of sneak peeks and what we're doing. All right, so if you don't have any more questions, just wrapping it up, and I'm going to see you guys soon. Thank you very much for joining.